The morning sun never rose over Seoul. Instead, darkness covered the sky. Massive ships blocked out the light. They were bigger than mountains, floating above every major city on Earth. The same thing happened in New York, London, Tokyo, and everywhere else. Humanity woke up to find they were no longer alone in the universe. Captain Junho stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the alien fleet through the viewport. His hands gripped the rail tightly. He had trained for many situations, but not this. Nobody had. "Sir, we're receiving a broadcast on all frequencies," his communications officer said. "It's in every language simultaneously." "Put it on screen," Junho ordered. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge go silent. The creature was tall, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were black and cold. Behind it stood 11 other alien species, all different, all dangerous-looking. "People of Earth," the alien spoke. Its voice was deep and seemed to echo. "I am High Sovereign Thex of the Vrax Empire. Your planet is now under our authority. You have 72 hours to accept our terms. Dismantle all military forces. Surrender your resources. Accept our occupation. If you refuse, your cities will burn." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. "That's it?" someone whispered. "They just show up and expect us to surrender?" Junho didn't answer. He was already thinking about what came next. On Earth, Ambassador Yuna sat in the emergency meeting of world leaders. Everyone was talking at once. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. Many were simply afraid. "We don't know anything about them," the UN Secretary General said. "Their technology, their numbers, their weapons. We're blind." "We know one thing," Yuna said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "They think we'll just give up. They've done this before, probably hundreds of times." "And?" someone asked. "And they're used to winning," she said. "That makes them predictable." In a hidden facility below the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Do-hyun watched screens showing the alien ships. He had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Most people thought he was paranoid. They said first contact would be peaceful. They were wrong. "Activate all defensive stations," he ordered. "But keep them in standby mode. I don't want them to know what we have." "Sir, what if they're monitoring us?" a young officer asked. Do-hyun smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Then let them see us scrambling around like scared rabbits. Let them think they've already won." The Vrax had faced hundreds of species before. The pattern was always the same. Show up with an overwhelming fleet. Make threats. Watch the primitives panic and surrender. It had worked for 800 years across 400 star systems. High Sovereign Thex sat on his command throne, watching Earth's broadcasts. The humans were arguing among themselves. Perfect. Division meant weakness. "They're even more pathetic than I expected," he said to his second-in-command, Crix. "Some are already calling for surrender." Crix nodded, but something bothered him. He had studied the human data carefully. These creatures had a strange history. They fought each other constantly, yet somehow kept advancing. They had survived extinction events that killed most of their planet's life. They had split atoms and touched their own moon using primitive rockets. "My lord, perhaps we should learn more about them before—" "Before what?" Thex interrupted. "They have chemical rockets. We cross star systems in days. They are nothing." To prove his point, Thex ordered a demonstration. An old space station orbited Earth, abandoned for years. It would make a good target. The Vrax destroyer moved into position. It fired once. The space station exploded into 1,000,000 pieces. "Broadcast that to their leaders," Thex commanded. "Let them see what happens to those who resist." "Ambassador." Yuna watched the space station's destruction from the Security Council. Around her, people looked terrified. She felt the fear too, but she pushed it down. Fear was useless right now. "I want to meet with them," she announced. "What? Are you insane?" someone shouted. "They agreed to talk before destroying us. That means they want something. If they just wanted to kill us, they'd already have done it." Yuna stood up and faced the council. "Let me go to their ship. Let me see what they really want." After hours of arguing, they agreed. A diplomatic shuttle would take Yuna to the Vrax flagship. Back on the Defiance, Captain Junho received new orders. They were encrypted at the highest level. When he decoded them, he read the message twice to make sure he understood. Protocol Defiance is now active. Those 5 words changed everything. For 20 years, humanity had been building weapons in secret. Not just any weapons. Things that bent the rules of warfare. Things that other species would consider cheating. Admiral Do-hyun had believed that if aliens ever came, they would be hostile. He had been right. Junho walked to the weapons control station. Lieutenant, begin arming the railgun platforms around the moon, but keep them powered down until I give the word. Sir, those are disguised as mining equipment. If we activate them, then the Vrax will know we've been expecting them, Junho finished. Yes, that's the point, but not yet. Let the ambassador talk first. Let them think they're in control. Throughout the solar system, similar orders went out. Mars colonies armed their defenses. Ships in the asteroid belt powered up weapons that didn't officially exist. Fighters launched from hidden bases on Europa and Titan. All of them waited. Dr. Minji worked in her laboratory making final checks on weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Nanite swarms, EMP mines, gravity well generators. They sounded like science fiction, but they were real, and in a few hours they might be all that stood between Earth and destruction. Will they work? Her assistant asked nervously. They'd better, Minji answered, because we only get one chance. Ambassador Yuna's shuttle approached the Vrax flagship. It was enormous, big enough to hold a small city. Weapons covered its surface. Any one of them could destroy her shuttle in a second. The Vrax allowed her to dock. Guards escorted her through massive corridors. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and weak. It worked, but Yuna had learned long ago not to show fear. Finally, she entered the throne room. High Sovereign Thex sat before her, surrounded by his council of alien species. They all looked at her with contempt. The human ambassador, Thex said, have you come to surrender your world? Yuna stood straight and looked directly into his black eyes. No. I've come to give you a chance to leave peacefully. You have 48 hours to withdraw from our solar system. After that, we will remove you by force. The throne room erupted in laughter. Aliens made sounds that hurt her ears. Thex laughed hardest of all. Remove us? You? He leaned forward. Little creature, we have destroyed species far more advanced than yours. Your primitive rockets and chemical weapons mean nothing to us. Then you have nothing to worry about, Yuna said calmly. 48 hours. I suggest you use them wisely. She turned and walked out, her heart pounding. Behind her, the laughter continued. They thought she was insane. They thought humans were weak. They were about to learn otherwise. High Sovereign Thex watched the human shuttle leave his flagship. He was still amused by the ambassador's audacity. 48 hours to leave? The thought made him laugh again. Shall we destroy their moon colonies as planned? Crix asked. Yes. Let them see what happens when they threaten the Vrax Empire. Thex waved one of his 4 hands. Send 3 destroyers. Make it slow. Let them watch their people die. The 3 Vrax destroyers moved toward the moon. Their weapons powered up, glowing with energy that could melt rock and metal. Back on Earth, billions watched their screens in horror. This was it. The aliens were about to show their true power. Captain Junho watched from the Defiance. His finger hovered over the activation button. Not yet, wait until they're committed. Wait until they think they've won. The Vrax destroyers reached firing range. Their weapons locked onto the largest lunar colony. 5,000 people lived there. They had nowhere to run. Fire, the Vrax commander ordered. At that exact moment, Junho pressed the button. All stations weapons free. Show them what we've built. The moon's surface erupted. What the Vrax thought were mining drills and equipment suddenly transformed. Massive railgun platforms rose from hidden positions. They had been there for years, disguised and waiting. The railguns fired. No energy weapons, no fancy technology. Just solid metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds. Physics did the rest. The first Vrax destroyer never saw it coming. The railgun slug punched through its shield like paper. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. The second destroyer tried to turn, but 3 more slugs hit it from different angles. It broke apart, pieces spinning into space. The third destroyer's captain was smarter. He immediately raised all shields and tried to retreat. But humanity had more surprises. Small objects drifted between the destroyer and safety. They looked like space debris. The Vrax ship flew right past them. Then the EMP mines activated. Dr. Minji had designed them specifically to overload alien shield technology. They worked perfectly. The destroyer's shields flickered and died. Its engines stopped. Its weapons went dark. The massive ship was now just a floating piece of metal. "Marines, you're clear for boarding," Junho said into his comm. Colonel Tae-hyung and his team had been waiting for this moment. Their assault shuttle launched from the Defiance, moving fast. Within minutes, they had attached to the disabled Vrax destroyer's hull and were cutting their way inside. The fighting inside the ship was brutal, but quick. The Vrax were bigger and stronger, but they had never faced humans in close combat. Taehyung's Marines used tactics that seemed insane. They fought in zero gravity like they were born to it. They used the ship's own corridors against the defenders. They were willing to take risks that no other species would consider. Within an hour, the Vrax destroyer belonged to humanity. Taehyung stood on its bridge, surrounded by captured alien technology. "Defiance, this is Colonel Taehyung. The ship is ours. Sending technical data now." Back on the Vrax flagship, silence filled the throne room. "Nobody was laughing anymore. What just happened?" Thex demanded. 3 destroyers gone in minutes. Crick studied the battle data, his expression dark. "My lord, the humans had prepared defenses we didn't detect. Their weapons are primitive but effective, and they captured the 3rd destroyer intact. They'll learn from it." "Impossible. They're supposed to be primitives." "They were never primitive," Crick said quietly. "We were just arrogant." Thex slammed his fist on his throne. "Send word to the Empire. I want 50 battle fleets here. We will crush these insects and scatter their ashes across their own planet." While the Vrax called for reinforcements, humanity went to work. Dr. Minji and her team swarmed over the captured destroyer. Every piece of technology was studied, copied, and analyzed. They had to work fast. "Their shields have a rotation frequency," Minji explained to Admiral Do-hyun over a secure channel. "If we match our weapons to that frequency, we can punch through like they're not even there." "How long to modify our weapons?" "It's already done. I had 3 different shield-breaking designs ready. We just needed to know which one to use." Do-hyun allowed himself a small smile. "The Vrax think we were unprepared. They have no idea." Pilot Sora sat in her cockpit running final checks on her fighter. It was smaller than the old military fighters, but faster and more maneuverable. She had trained for 5 years on the new design. Now she would finally use it in real combat. "All pilots, this is Wing Commander. The Vrax think our fighters are slow and clumsy because that's what we showed them before. Time to prove them wrong. Stay tight, stay fast, and remember your training." "Yes, sir," Sora replied with her squadron. The Vrax sent more ships to investigate what happened at the moon. This time they came ready for a fight. 10 cruisers, heavily armed and shielded. They didn't see the human fighters until it was too late. Sora's squadron came from the direction of the sun, their ship's thermal signatures masked. They moved in complete silence, their coordination perfect. When they attacked, it looked like a dance. The human fighters were small enough to dodge the Vrax weapons. They were fast enough to circle around the bigger ships. And now, thanks to Dr. Minji's work, their weapons could penetrate Vrax shields. Sora targeted the lead cruiser's engine section. Her fighter twisted and rolled, avoiding incoming fire. She fired her missiles at the exact moment her computer showed the shield rotation would allow them through. All 4 missiles hit home. The Vrax cruiser's engines exploded. The ship began to drift, powerless. All around the battle space, the same thing happened. Human fighters swarmed the Vrax cruisers like angry insects. The aliens tried to swat them away, but there were too many moving too fast. One by one, the cruisers were disabled or destroyed. The Defiance joined the fight. Captain Junho brought his ship in closer than the Vrax expected. At point-blank range, he unleashed everything his ship had. "All weapons, continuous fire," Junho ordered. The Defiance and 3 Vrax cruisers traded blows. It should have been suicide for the human ship. But Junho used maneuvers that seemed impossible. He flew the Defiance like a fighter instead of a warship, dodging and weaving. His crew worked like a machine, every person doing their job perfectly. When the battle ended, all 3 Vrax cruisers were destroyed. The Defiance was damaged but still fighting. Its crew cheered. They had faced odds that should have killed them and won. On the Vrax flagship, Ambassador Yuna watched the battles through the windows. Her guards looked nervous now. She was still a prisoner, but the situation had changed. "Your people fight well," Crick said, approaching her. Unlike Thex, he sounded respectful. "We underestimated you." "Yes, you did," Yuna agreed. "And you're still underestimating us." "Everything you've seen?" "We're still holding back." "Why tell me this?" "Because you seem smarter than your leader. This war doesn't have to continue. How many of your ships have to die before you realize you can't win?" Crick said nothing, but Yuna could see him thinking. She had planted a seed of doubt. Maybe it would grow. Across the solar system, humanity counted their victories. They had destroyed or captured 15 Virax ships without losing a single human vessel. It was impossible. It was incredible. But Admiral Do-Yun knew the truth. They had won because of surprise. Because the Vrax didn't expect real resistance. That advantage wouldn't last. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system," a sensor officer reported. "Multiple jump points opening." Do-Yun's expression became grim. "How many ships?" The officer's face went pale. "Hundreds, sir. Maybe thousands. It's the largest fleet I've ever seen." The Vrax reinforcements had arrived, and they were angry. Do-Yun activated the emergency broadcast to all human forces. "This is Admiral Do-Yun. The real fight is about to begin. We hurt them, and now they're coming with everything they have. But remember, we're not fighting to conquer. We're fighting to survive, and humans have survived worse than this. All stations, prepare for battle. Earth is counting on us." Throughout the solar system, human forces readied themselves. They had won the first battles. But the war was just beginning. The Vrax Empire had never lost in 800 years. They would not accept defeat from creatures they considered primitive. High Sovereign Thex stared at Earth through his viewport. His 4 hands clenched into fists. "Bring War Marshal Dren. Tell him I want the human homeworld turned to ash. No mercy, no survivors." The deadliest warrior in the Vrax Empire was coming, and he had never failed. War Marshal Dren stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human solar system grow closer. Behind him, 10 battle fleets moved in perfect formation. Over 2,000 ships. Enough firepower to destroy planets. Dren had crushed 23 civilizations in his career. He had burned worlds that refused to surrender. The Vrax Empire called him their greatest weapon. He had never failed a mission. "These humans will learn," he said to his officers. "They embarrassed High Sovereign Thex. For that, they will pay with their world." The Vrax fleet entered the solar system like a storm. They came prepared for everything. Their shields were modified to counter human weapons. Their ships stayed in tight formations to prevent surprise attacks. They had learned from their losses. Admiral Do-Hyun watched them come from his hidden command center deep in the asteroid belt. The tactical display showed the overwhelming Vrax numbers. 50 Vrax ships for every human one. Against any other species, it would be over before it started. "Begin evacuation protocols," he ordered calmly. "All civilians from Mars, Europa, and outer colonies through the emergency gates." "Sir, the gates will give away their locations," an officer protested. "They'll find them eventually anyway." "Get our people to safety. The military stays and fights." Throughout the colonies, families rushed to secret evacuation points. Wormhole gates that humanity had built in absolute secrecy hummed to life. These gates led to deep space stations far from the solar system. Even if Earth fell, humanity would survive. The Vrax detected the energy signatures and sent ships to investigate. They found the gates but arrived too late. Thousands of civilians had already escaped. Dren ordered the gates destroyed, but the damage was done. "They were ready for this," Crick said quietly. "They planned for losing." "It doesn't matter," Dren replied. "Hunt down every human ship. Target their cities. Break their will to fight." The Vrax fleet divided into attack groups. They would hit everything at once. Mars bases, asteroid mining stations, orbital platforms around Earth. The message was clear: surrender or die. But humanity had more surprises. Dr. Minji activated her new weapon from a laboratory on Ganymede. Nanite swarms. Millions of microscopic machines that could dismantle matter at the molecular level. She had tested them on asteroids. Now she would test them on Vrax ships. The nanites were invisible to Vrax sensors. They drifted through space like dust, spreading among the enemy fleet. When they reached critical density, Minji activated them. A Vrax battlecruiser suddenly began to dissolve. its hull peeled away in sheets. Its weapons crumbled to powder. The crew inside screamed as their ship fell apart around them. Within minutes, nothing remained but scattered atoms. The same thing happened to 20 other Vrak ships. They simply ceased to exist, consumed by the nanite swarms. What sorcery is this? Dren demanded, watching his ships disappear. Weapons don't work like this. The humans don't follow the rules, Crix answered. They never have. Jisoo sat in a darkened room surrounded by computer screens. She was humanity's best cyber warfare specialist. While the Vraks focused on physical weapons, she attacked their networks. The Vraks used quantum encryption. It should have been unbreakable. But Jisoo had been studying captured Vraks technology for weeks. She found the backdoor that Vraks engineers used for maintenance. One small weakness in a perfect system. She sent her virus through that weakness. It spread through the Vraks network like wildfire. Suddenly, Vrak ships couldn't identify friend from enemy. Their targeting systems went haywire. Ships began firing on each other, thinking they were shooting at humans. Shut down the network, Dren roared. But it was too late. The virus had infected too many systems. In the chaos, Commander Minho made his move. His stealth carrier had been hiding in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Io. The Vraks didn't even know it existed. Human stealth technology bent light around the ship, making it invisible to almost every sensor. Minho launched his fighter squadrons. They appeared out of nowhere, striking Vrak supply ships and command vessels. By the time the Vraks realized what was happening, 20 more of their ships were destroyed. Sora led her squadron in a daring attack on a Vrak's carrier. Instead of fighting from outside, she flew directly into the carrier's hangar bay. Her fighters dodged defensive weapons and launched missiles at the stored Vrak's craft inside. The carrier exploded from within. Sora's squadron escaped just before the whole ship tore apart. Confirmed kill, Sora reported, her heart racing. That's carrier number 3. But the Vraks kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. They had the numbers. They had the resources. They were grinding humanity down through sheer weight. Captain Junho's Defiance fought in the orbital space around Earth. His ship had taken heavy damage. Hull breaches, failing engines, dead crew members. But Junho refused to retreat. Sir, we have to fall back, his first officer begged. Not while they're targeting cities, Junho said through gritted teeth. Below them, Vrak's destroyers were firing on Earth's surface. Target that destroyer's weapons array. If we can't save everyone, we save who we can. The Defiance fired its last missiles. They struck true, disabling the Vrak's destroyer before it could fire again. But the victory was small. Too many other ships were still attacking. On Earth, cities burned. The Vrak showed no mercy. They targeted hospitals, schools, and homes. They wanted to break humanity's spirit through terror. But War Marshal Dren had made a fatal mistake. Humans didn't break under pressure. They got angry. Engineer High Agent activated her gravity well generators. These devices created artificial gravity fields strong enough to trap ships. She had placed them throughout the asteroid belt, hidden among the rocks. When the next wave of Vrak ships entered the belt, the generators activated. Suddenly, massive gravitational forces pulled the ships off course. They crashed into asteroids or collided with each other. Those that survived found themselves stuck, unable to move. Colonel Taehyung led his Marines in boarding actions against the trapped ships. His teams had gotten very good at capturing Vrak's vessels. They moved through the ships like ghosts, taking control room by room. By the end of the day, Taehyung had captured 15 Vrak ships intact. More technology for Dr. Minji to study, more weapons for humanity to use, but Earth was dying. Despite every victory in space, the Vrak's bombardment continued. Millions were dead. Major cities were in ruins. Humanity was losing its homeworld. In his hidden command center, Admiral Do-hyun received the worst news yet. Sir, Vrak's energy signature detected. It's massive. Bigger than anything we've seen. On the tactical display, a new ship appeared. It was 10 times larger than the Vrak's flagship. Weapons covered every surface. This was the Planet Cracker, a superweapon designed to destroy entire worlds. War Marshal Dren broadcast a message to all human forces. You have fought well for primitives. But it ends now. In 36 hours, the Planet Cracker will fire. Your home world will be torn apart. Surrender now and I will spare your colonies. Refuse and I will hunt down every human in the galaxy. Silence filled Do-hyun's command center. Everyone looked at him waiting for orders. They were exhausted. They were outnumbered. They were losing, Do-hyun smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. Dr. Minji, status on Project Endgame. Minji's voice came through the speakers. She sounded tired but excited. Ready for deployment, Admiral. But once we use it, there's no going back. Every species in the galaxy will know what we're capable of. Good, Do-hyun said. It's time to stop playing defense. 36 hours, they said. That's more time than we need. He opened a channel to all human military forces. This is Admiral Do-hyun. For weeks we've been fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. We've been holding back, trying to minimize casualties, trying to prove we're civilized. But the Vraks don't understand civilization. They understand strength. He paused, letting his words sink in. So let's show them strength. Real strength. The kind that comes from a species that survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and thousands of years of fighting ourselves. We're done being defensive. It's time to show the Vraks what humans do when you threaten extinction. Around the solar system, human forces received their new orders. The weapons they had been saving, the tactics they had been holding back, the technology they hadn't wanted to reveal. All of it was unleashed. Dr. Minji prepared her most powerful nanites. Jisoo loaded her most devastating viruses. Engineer Haijin programmed her gravity generators for maximum effect. Commander Minho readied weapons that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Captain Junho armed experimental missiles that traveled at nearly the speed of light. Colonel Tae-hyung and his Marines prepared for the most daring raid in human history. They were going to steal the planet cracker. War Marshal Dren didn't know it yet, but he had made the same mistake as High Sovereign Thex. He thought humans were desperate. He thought they were finished. He was about to learn that desperate humans were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. The planet cracker hung in space like a sleeping giant. It was the Vraks Empire's ultimate weapon. One shot could tear a world apart. War Marshal Dren kept it protected by 3 full battle groups. Nothing could get close to it. Captain Junho proved him wrong. The Defiance approached the planet cracker at a speed that should have torn the ship apart. Its damaged engine screamed in protest. Alarms blared across every deck. But Junho kept pushing. "Sir, the hull can't take much more," his engineer shouted. "It only needs to hold for 3 more minutes," Junho replied calmly. The Vraks ships guarding the planet cracker opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled space. The Defiance dodged and weaved, its pilot flying like the ship was a fighter instead of a heavy cruiser. Behind the Defiance, hidden in its sensor shadow, Colonel Tae-hyung's assault team rode in small stealth pods. The Vraks were focused on the big ship. They never saw the pods separate and attached to the planet cracker's hull. "We're attached," Tae-hyung reported. "Beginning breach." His Marines used plasma cutters to burn through the hull. Within seconds, they were inside. The Vraks crew never expected boarders. Why would anyone be crazy enough to board a superweapon while it was guarded by hundreds of ships? Humans. That's who. Tae-hyung's team moved through the planet cracker like they had trained there. They had studied every schematic from the captured Vraks ships. They knew exactly where to go. Engineering first, then weapons control, then the bridge. The Vraks defenders were bigger and stronger, but they were slow. Tae-hyung's Marines used speed and surprise. They fought in zero gravity. They used the ship's own corridors as weapons. One Marine would draw fire while 2 others flanked from different directions. Engineering secured, Tae-hyung reported. Weapons control in 30 seconds. Back in space, the Defiance finally took a direct hit. The ship shuddered. Systems failed across multiple decks, but Junho had bought enough time. His mission was complete. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. "Get to the escape pods now." "What about you, sir?" his first officer asked. Junho smiled. "Someone has to keep them busy a little longer. Go." "That's an order." The crew reluctantly evacuated while Junho stayed at the helm. He fired every weapon the Defiance had left, not at enemy ships but at random directions, creating as much chaos as possible, keeping all eyes on him. Inside the planet cracker, Tae-hyung reached the bridge. The Vraks commander there was huge, with battle scars covering his body. He roared and charged at the humans. Tae-hyung shot him once. The Vraks commander fell. No time for honor. No time for anything except winning. "Bridge secured," Tae-hyung said. "The planet cracker is ours." The massive weapon turned in space. Its devastating cannon, designed to destroy Earth, now pointed at the Vraks fleet. "Fire," Tae-hyung ordered. The planet cracker unleashed its power. The beam was so intense it looked like a new sun had been born. It tore through 200 Vrak ships in a single shot, just erased them from existence. War Marshal Dren watched in horror as his own superweapon destroyed his fleet. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was the beginning of the end. While the Vraks reeled from that blow, humanity struck from every direction. Commander Minho's stealth carriers appeared in 12 different systems across Vrax-controlled space. They weren't in the solar system at all. They had been sent weeks ago through humanity's secret gates. Now they attacked Vrak supply lines, destroying fuel depots and ammunition stores. Without supplies, the massive Vrax fleet in the solar system couldn't fight for long. Dr. Minji upgraded her nanites one final time. The new version could convert destroyed Vrak ships into materials for human weapons. Every enemy ship destroyed became resources for humanity. The Vraks were literally fueling their own defeat. Jisu's virus evolved. It no longer just confused Vrak's targeting systems. Now it could take control of entire ships. Vrak's cruisers turned against their own fleet, firing on their allies while their crews desperately tried to regain control. "This is madness," a Vrak's captain screamed. "What kind of species fights like this?" "One that refuses to lose," his human opponent replied over the comm. Pilot Sora led a squadron of fighters on a mission that seemed suicidal. They were going after War Marshal Dren's flagship. Not to destroy it, to humiliate it. They flew in a pattern that seemed random but was actually carefully calculated. Every ship in Sora's squadron fired at the exact same moment at the exact same point. Their combined firepower punched through the flagship's shields and destroyed its main weapons array. Dren's unstoppable flagship was now defenseless. "Message to the War Marshal," Sora said. "Tell him that was a warning. Next time we take his engines." Engineer Hyejin activated her secret weapon. Scientists had told her it was impossible, that it would never work. They were wrong. She triggered artificial gravitational anomalies around several stars in nearby systems. The anomalies wouldn't cause supernovas. Humanity wasn't that cruel. But they sent massive solar flares toward Vrax-controlled worlds. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to disable every satellite and orbital station. The message was clear. Humanity could trigger stars if they wanted to. The Vrax Empire might destroy Earth, but humanity could take the entire empire with them. On the Vrax flagship where Ambassador Yuna was still being held, panic spread among the crew. They were losing. The mighty Vrax Empire, undefeated for 800 years, was losing to a species they had called primitive. Crix came to Yuna's cell. He looked exhausted. "Your people fight without honor. You cheat. You break every rule of warfare." Yuna stood and faced him through the energy barrier. "You tried to exterminate us. You bombed our cities. You killed our civilians. And you lecture us about honor?" She shook her head. "We fight to survive. If that means cheating, we cheat. If that means breaking rules, we break them. Because the only rule that matters is this. You don't get to kill us and expect us to make it easy." "We could still destroy your world," Crix said. But his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, you could. And the moment you do, every human ship in every system will activate their final protocol. We'll trigger supernovas in 20 Virax systems. We'll deploy nanites on 100 Virax worlds. We'll upload viruses into every Vrax computer network in the galaxy. We'll make sure that even if we die, the Vrax Empire falls with us." Yuna stepped closer to the barrier. "Or you could stop this war. Choose peace. Let both our species survive." Crix stood silent for a long moment. Then he did something Yuna didn't expect. He deactivated her cell barrier. "Come with me," he said. War Marshal Dren sat on his damaged bridge, watching his fleet crumble. Half his ships were destroyed or captured. Another quarter had been disabled by human viruses. The rest were scattered, disorganized, and demoralized. His communication officer spoke quietly. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 14 battle groups. They're asking permission to withdraw." "Denied," Dren roared. "We are Vrax. We do not surrender." "Sir, please," Crix's voice came over the comm. "We've lost. Continuing this war will accomplish nothing except our extinction. The humans are offering terms. Real terms, not surrender. We should listen." "Traitor," Dren screamed. "I'll have you executed for cowardice." "I'm standing on the bridge right now," Crix replied calmly. "With Ambassador Yuna, she's offering peace. A real peace. Not victory, not surrender. Just an end to the killing." Dren looked around his bridge. His officers wouldn't meet his eyes. They were exhausted. They had lost friends. They had seen the impossible happen over and over. They wanted it to end. "You're all cowards," Dren said quietly. "The Empire will punish this failure." "The Empire already knows," Crix said. "High Sovereign Thex has been watching everything. He tried to order me to assassinate you for your failures. I refused. 6 other commanders refused. The Empire is fracturing, War Marshal, because nobody wants to fight an enemy that can't be beaten." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Do-Hyun received a message from Crix. The Vrax wanted to negotiate. Real negotiations, not just demands. "Do we have the strength to finish them?" an officer asked. Do-Hyun looked at the tactical display. Human forces were exhausted. Ships were damaged. Weapons were running low. They could probably destroy the remaining Vrax fleet, but at enormous cost. "We can win," Do-Hyun said. "But winning isn't the same as surviving. Open a channel to Crix. Let's hear what they have to say." Captain Junho floated in an escape pod watching the Defiance burn. His ship had given everything, so had he. But they had accomplished their mission. Around him, the Vrax fleet was retreating. Not because they were destroyed, but because they had lost something more important than ships. They had lost their certainty. For 800 years, they had known they would win. Now they knew they could lose. The war wasn't over yet. But humanity had done the impossible. They had stood against an empire and survived. More than survived. They had proven that size and technology didn't always win. That spirit and determination and refusal to give up could overcome any odds. On Earth's surface, people emerged from shelters to see the Vrax ships withdrawing. They had lost so much. Cities destroyed. Millions dead. But they were still alive. Still fighting. Still human. In his command center, Admiral Do-Hyun composed a message to all human forces. "This is Admiral Do-Hyun. The Vrax have requested negotiations. We're going to give them a chance at peace. Not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to choose." 6 months had passed since the first Vrax ships appeared over Earth. The war that should have lasted days had become a conflict that changed the galaxy forever. Ambassador. Yuna stood in a massive hall on a neutral space station between human and Vrax territories. Representatives from 300 species filled the chamber. They had come to witness something that had never happened before. The Vrax Empire signing a peace treaty as equals, not conquerors. High Sovereign Thex was not present. He had tried to continue the war even after his forces retreated. He ordered attacks on human colonies, assassination attempts on human leaders, and threatened any Vrax commander who spoke of peace. His own people arrested him. For the first time in Vrax history, they had removed their sovereign from power. Crix stood where Thex should have been. He looked tired but determined. "Ambassador Yuna," he said formally, "on behalf of what remains of the Vrax Empire, I accept the terms of the Terran Accords." The Terran Accords were simple. No forced vassalization, no tribute payments, no conquered worlds. Every species would be free to govern itself. Those who wanted protection could join the Mutual Defense Coalition as equals. Those who wanted to remain independent could do so without fear. It was revolutionary. For thousands of years, the galaxy had operated on a simple rule: the strong dominate the weak. Humanity was proposing something different: cooperation instead of conquest. Many species were skeptical. "Humans only won because they fight dirty," one ambassador muttered. "They'll be tyrants like everyone else once they gain power." But Yuna had prepared for this. "We're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're proposing a council where every species has an equal vote, including species that fought against us, including the Vrax, that caused murmurs of surprise. Give the enemy equal power? It seemed foolish. We believe in second chances," Yuna continued. "We believe people can change. The Vrax invaded us, yes. They killed millions of our people, but continuing hatred only leads to more war. We choose a different path." Crix stepped forward. "The Vrax Empire was wrong. I was wrong. We believed our strength gave us the right to rule others. We learned that true strength is choosing peace when you have the power to destroy." He looked directly at Yuna. "Humanity taught us that lesson. We will not forget it." One by one, species began signing the accords. Not all of them. Some refused, clinging to the old ways, but enough signed to change everything. On Earth, reconstruction had begun. The scars of war were everywhere. Cities lay in ruins. Monuments to the dead filled public spaces. But humanity was rebuilding as they always had. Captain Junho stood at the ceremony honoring those who died in the war. His body was covered in scars from the injuries he sustained when the Defiance was destroyed. But he was alive and standing. "They say we won," he said to the crowd. "But when I look at what we lost, victory feels hollow. Millions dead, our world damaged, families destroyed." He paused. "But we're still here. Still human, still dreaming of tomorrow. That's what they couldn't take from us. Our ability to hope even in darkness." Admiral Do-hyun had retired after the war ended. He appeared at the ceremony to present awards to the surviving heroes. When he gave Colonel Tae-hyung his medal for capturing the planet Cracker, the crowd erupted in cheers. "I just did my job," Tae-hyung said quietly. "Your job was to capture an impossible target protected by an entire fleet," Do-hyun replied. "You did that and made it look easy. You're a hero whether you want to be or not." Dr. Minji had dismantled the most dangerous weapons humanity created. The nanites that could consume entire fleets, the viruses that could control alien ships, the devices that could trigger stars. "We built these things out of desperation," she explained to a committee of scientists from various species. "But now we can build better things. Medical nanites to heal injuries, computers that connect all species, energy systems that could power entire worlds." She shared her research freely. Some human leaders protested, saying they should keep their technological advantage. Minji disagreed. "If we hoard knowledge, we're no better than the empire we defeated. We said we wanted cooperation. This is what cooperation looks like." Pilot Sora became an instructor at the new Galactic Flight Academy. She taught pilots from dozens of species the techniques that made human fighters so effective. "You're bigger and stronger than us," she told her Vrak students. "Your ships have better shields and weapons, but you fly like you're afraid to take risks. Combat isn't about having the best equipment. It's about adapting to situations and refusing to give up." A young Vrax pilot raised his hand. "But doesn't taking risks get you killed?" Sora smiled. "Sometimes. But playing it safe definitely gets you killed when you're outmatched. Humans learned to take calculated risks because we were always the underdogs. Now I'm teaching you the same lessons." Commander Minho's stealth carriers were converted to exploration vessels. Instead of hunting enemies, they mapped new star systems and made peaceful contact with species that had never met other intelligent life. Engineer Heejin worked on a project that seemed impossible, building gates that could connect any 2 points in the galaxy instantly. If it worked, travel that took months would take seconds. Trade between distant species would become practical. The galaxy would become smaller and more connected. Jisoo used her cyber warfare skills for a new purpose. She helped species protect their networks from hackers and criminals. She also created translation programs that allowed any species to communicate instantly with any other. Language barriers fell and understanding grew. The Vrax Empire dissolved. The 12 species that made it up became independent again. Some joined the Mutual Defense Coalition immediately. Others watched and waited. But all of them were free to choose their own paths for the first time in generations. War Marshal Dren had been captured during the final battles. He stood trial for war crimes, judged by representatives from multiple species, including humans. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. But something unexpected happened. During his imprisonment, Dren met with human veterans who had lost family to Vrax attacks. They talked. They shared stories. Slowly, painfully, understanding grew where hatred had been. "I thought humans were weak because you valued individual lives," Dren said to one veteran. "I thought our willingness to sacrifice anything for victory made us strong. I was wrong. Caring about each other is what made you stronger." I see that now. It didn't erase his crimes. It didn't bring back the dead. But it showed that even the worst enemies could learn and change. High Sovereign Thex, however, learned nothing. He raged in his cell, plotting revenge until his death years later. Some people never change. Humanity accepted that. Ambassador Yuna became the first Secretary General of the Galactic Council. The position had no real power. She couldn't order anyone to do anything. She could only convince, negotiate, and inspire. It was perfect for her. In her first address to the Council, she spoke about the future. "We came so close to destroying each other. The Vrax could have turned Earth to ash. Humans could have triggered supernovas and taken half the galaxy with us. But we didn't. We chose to talk instead. To build instead of destroy." She looked at the representatives of hundreds of species. This is just the beginning. We'll have disagreements. We'll have conflicts. Some species will reject the council and go their own way. That's fine. We're not building an empire. We're building something harder. A community of equals. Years passed. The galaxy slowly changed. Trade flourished. Technology spread. Species that had been enemies became partners. New colonies were founded on worlds that multiple species shared. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts. Some species still fought each other. Pirates and criminals operated in the gaps between laws. New problems arose that no one had anticipated. But it was better. Measurably, undeniably better than the old way. On a rebuilt Earth, a monument was erected at the site where the first Virax ships had appeared. It was a simple stone pillar with words in every known language. They thought fear would make us surrender. They were wrong. Fear made us stronger. Remember the fallen. Honor their sacrifice. And never forget that the greatest strength is choosing peace when you have the power to destroy. Captain Junho, fully healed, took command of the UNS Unity. It was the first ship with a mixed crew. Humans, Frax, and 6 other species working together. Their mission was exploration, not war. At the launch ceremony, someone asked Junho if he was worried about commanding a ship with former enemies. He smiled. We were enemies because we didn't know each other, now we do. That changes everything. Admiral Do-hyun watched the launch from his retirement home. He had spent 20 years preparing for hostile first contact. He had been right that aliens would be dangerous. But he had been wrong about one thing. War wasn't inevitable. Peace was possible. It just took people willing to fight for it. Dr. Minji's research led to medical breakthroughs that saved millions of lives across the galaxy. The nanites that once destroyed ships now healed injuries and cured diseases. Weapons became tools. Destruction became creation. The galaxy that had been ruled by fear for thousands of years was learning a new way. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But it was happening. And it all started because one species refused to give up when everyone said they should. Because humans looked at impossible odds and said, "Watch."